So a little bit about, before we get into community-minded kids, because that's a main program of Community Minds, I thought I'd just kind of share a little bit about Community Minds. So you all can see that screen. Can you guys hear me?
We can certainly hear you, Zizi.
Oh, sorry. I think my internet is not great today. So basically, a little bit about Community Minds. The reason why we exist as an organisation is to inspire and instill community-mindedness in everybody. And I think what we want to, one of the main things that we're trying to do is actually start conversations with people, be it businesses, children, the unusual suspects, so to speak, and getting them actually included in this thing that we call community building. So for us, creating programs like Community Minded Kids really puts the focus on actually involving and engaging children in community building. And from the 24 years I've been in community work, one of the key things that we hear, and it keeps kind of coming up, is the challenge that community development practitioners have in actually engaging children and young people in community building in a meaningful way. So for us, that's actually something that we've really sort of focused on, probably more so in the last 3 years. But we're a very young organisation. We're only 5 years old. And we just, as some of you know, we've just had our 5th year birthday, our 5th year anniversary. And a big aim for us in the next 5 years is to build on community building initiatives that involve children. We've barely scratched the surface. We've got a long way to go. And we'd love to also connect with you in seeing how we can actually do that. We can't do it alone. We're a very small organisation, but the beauty about our organisation is that we're connected to people like yourselves, and we're hoping to kind of build on it through our connections and networks. So just in a nutshell, with Community Minded Kids, it aims to foster community wellbeing and encourage community and civic participation in children 9 to 12 years old. We're looking at expanding that to encompass maybe 7 or 8 year old kids till about up to 12. But for now, the program kind of looks like the 9 to 12 years old. And a big part, a big part of the program in itself is getting children to think about community beyond just helping people. And another focus, I guess, is, you know, most of us have been through the education system in a Western country, so to speak. There's a big emphasis on, you know, kids being good as opposed to kids doing good. And we really want to kind of look at the doing good part and seeing what we can, how we can inspire kids to do that. I'm just going to minimize this. I just thought there's no presentation complete without some inspiring quotes. So these are just some of my favorite quotes, and really kind of reflective of the essence of what Community Minded Kids is about. So Paulo Freire, one of my favorite authors, says, if education alone cannot transform society, without it, society cannot change either. And I think that if we're really genuine about shifting and creating a generation that is community minded, it needs to somehow be connected to children's education. And not just that too, we need to actually have not just part of their formal education, but getting them to actually do stuff outside of school in their actual communities. So another quote, sorry guys. The goal of democratic education is to empower young people to be autonomous, responsible members of their community and the larger world. Again, just kind of really in line with what we're trying to achieve with the program. So we actually done an evaluation in 2018, and it was really positive. The students came back really just amazing. 64% of the students responded that community-minded kids made them feel more connected to their community. And most of the students actually discovered more assets in their community that they had not known before the program, which is really great. We've got a full report on this evaluation if you actually want a copy. Another key part of the program is this idea of collaboration and getting kids to kind of think about creating change, not just as an individual, but how do you actually create change with others, and promoting cooperation and collaboration as opposed to competing. Our education system is very much still about competition and putting students kind of against each other and comparing. And we think that kind of breaks down this sense of solidarity and wanting to work with others. So basically, so it's not just about kids doing good stuff in the community. It's also about feeling like they're part of something that's just not just about themselves, and also feeling like their worth is not based on comparing themselves to others. So I found this really interesting. It's a great book called The Case Against Competition. And in that, I really love this. Studies have shown that feelings of self-worth become dependent on external sources of evaluation as a result of competition. Your value is defined by what you've done. Worse, you're a good person in proportion to the number of people you've beaten. And I think that's instilled a lot in children and kind of goes against community values and what we're actually trying to teach children. Cooperation helps children communicate effectively, to trust others and accept those who are different from themselves. I'm going to finish with the quote soon, I promise. Schools can become inclusive communities where differences are brought together into a mutually respectful whole, but schools must first become places where members have developed a community of mind that bonds them together in a special way and binds them to a shared ideology. One thing that the program addresses, we feel, in schools is this sense of connectedness, or promotes this sense of belonging that transcends all kinds of differences or perceived differences. We actually run this program in schools with children that have diverse abilities and special needs, and their sense of, I guess, worth and feeling a sense of purpose really shifted things for a lot of the students. So about the program itself, we haven't got that much time, but I'll just give you a bit of a snapshot of the program. So it's a school-based program, which makes it really difficult given that it's COVID now. So we're looking at kind of changing the way we engage schools and communities, for that matter, in involving them in the program. We're not quite there yet, but at this stage, we've developed it as a school-based program, and there's also out-of-school activities that we encourage children to do. Just generally speaking, these are the topic areas that we cover in the program. It goes for a whole term, but it's very flexible. So once teachers have actually implemented the program over a full term, they can actually build on these topics in other terms. So they don't really need us there basically to run this, and can actually run these lesson plans or activities way beyond the program, that will post-program. So the resources pretty much stay with teachers and the lesson plans that we've designed. The great thing about the program, and we're actually building on this, we've sourced about 150 books. So there's references to about 150 children's books that teachers and community practitioners can use that address certain topics such as diversity, social justice, belonging, et cetera, et cetera. These topics are what we have now, but what we're looking at into the future is actually building on these topics and expanding on them. So for example, diversity is in of itself diverse, and you can imagine how many topics we could have under that. So we're really building it up, and it can be, you know, bigger than Ben-Hur, as they say. So we're just really trying to give teachers and community practitioners more options and more topics that they can actually explore with children. One key, one of the topics that we cover are people power. And one thing that teachers are telling us is that's not really covered in schools. So citizenship and being a good citizen is covered quite well in schools currently. And I can't speak for New Zealand or the UK, but currently it's covered fairly well in schools. But one area that is lacking that we found in conversation with teachers was people power as well as social justice. Because it's one of those sort of scary topics that if you empower children too much, you know, may not be good for, you know, so it's kind of one of those things where there's sometimes a little bit of sort of controversy, or, you know, teachers aren't sure how to actually navigate these topics. So one thing that is absolutely beautiful about this program is we connect it. It's very much asset-based community development principles and approach. We actually teach the teachers and give them information around the 6 broad assets that exist in our community. And what we, to add to that, is we actually provide teachers with ideas of discoveries, and I'll explain to you what that is. So we have discoveries and do's. I don't know where I put that. Sorry, I don't know where I put that. I might have got rid of it. I'm so upset. But a key part of the program is every week students actually discover one asset in their community, and they do one do every week. And so we've got a list of discoveries and do's connected to these 6 broad community assets. I've lost a few slides, I think. That's okay. So one thing that we're actually aiming to do is move community-minded kids online. At the moment now, we're kind of looking at, you know, some resources or funding or what have you to actually get it online and make it a bit more interactive and allowing, you know, children and teachers to actually access the program through an online platform. So we're currently looking at how to actually do that. We're looking at, this is really exciting. So what we're aiming to do is a forum called Communiverse, where children, teachers, and also community practitioners that work with children or young people can actually access this online forum. It will be moderated and monitored. And then there'll be opportunity for children and teachers to share their community the activities that they're doing in class or in their community, and some ideas for discovers and do's, and just, you know, acts of kindness, advocacy that children or students might be, you know, taking on, and all kinds of stuff. So there'll be topics too that we're going to be exploring with teachers and students, which will be really cool. So you'll get updated once that's up and running. So there's a few things, I guess, that we're not introducing anything new. It's stuff that you already know, but we're actually trying to think of ways that young people can actually do good stuff in their community, particularly in times like this current pandemic that we're experiencing now. So some things that we're actually hearing and kind of taking note of is, So it's been a good opportunity for, being at home, I guess, quite a lot. There have been some children that have actually gathered toys or clothes or things that they actually don't need and have actually distributed them in the community to those that may need it. So there's been like toy drives and clothes drive and stuff like that. And so actual kids are actually participating more in these things, and this stuff is actually quite doable in times like this. Again, nothing new, things that you already know. Looking at having like libraries, donating books, having, obviously street libraries set up, and really encouraging children to do those kinds of things. And we're starting to see them pop up more. We've actually seen a few in Bankstown, which is really exciting. And that's been really cool. So again, something that's quite doable. We're looking at, and this will be, we're hoping to kind of get this out, spread it out a bit more, getting young people and children. Obviously, this needs to be, with the supervision of their parents. So we don't encourage children to go out and do things alone. But looking at ways that children can actually help their neighbours, be it take out their bins, or particularly now with what's going on, the elderly, our senior citizens are basically feeling even more isolated. And it's not only our senior citizens, there's a lot of people in the community feeling really isolated. So, really trying to kind of do just acts of kindness in the community and checking up on neighbours. One thing that I'm really kind of excited about, we're going to start this locally if we can, kind of community-minded kindness notes. I just got these random pictures from the internet, but it's actually it's a retirement home, and there's they're actually sending out something to where they're based. So, and I think that that's a really fantastic thing, and I think that kids could really get involved in this. I wanted to share this letter with you guys. It's actually a note written to a neighbour by a young 5-year-old, which I thought was just absolutely adorable. And you can just barely make out what he's written, but he's like, "Hello, my name is Kieran. I'm 5 years old. I have to stay at home because of the coronavirus, and I just wanted to check to see if you're okay." And it was just really beautiful. And I think that that's one thing that we'd love to encourage children to do, is actually just write a letter and put it in their neighbour's letterbox or in the street. And I think it will really make someone's day. So yeah, I'll just I'll continue thing that we're coining, a kind of phrase that we're coining in this program is turning a me generation into a we generation. And like I said, I think that's going to take a lot of effort and really working with others and getting this kind of more widespread. But I think that if we don't do it now with young children and with young people, I think that it's going to be really hard later on to actually have a generation that really cares about their community. One thing that we've actually really focused on in this program is challenging children's perception of community. And initially, when we actually spoke to children, their sense of community was just about helping others. And what we want to do is actually, that's great that they want to do that, but we want to actually build this sense of solidarity, and not just this idea of community is about charitable acts or about helping the underprivileged or disadvantaged. Community is something that we all build together and is not about us or them. And that's one thing that we're really trying to instill as a value in this program, is this sort of sense of solidarity which I still think is missing in terms of, you know, how we educate children.